The aspect of the current economic crisis that most interests me is how different people react mentally to the situation we're in. I spoke with two people from different generations, one from mine and one that's seen a couple economic crashes, to get a better sense of how people are reacting. This is Sandra Lillydahl, the map librarian at the W.E.B. Du Bois Library.
I was actually much more aware of the effects of the last economic crash that happened after the Gulf War, because at that point I had a small bookstore in Amherst, and at that point my store was one of a number of small businesses that had to close. And personally, of course, it's delayed my retirement. My retirement savings got eaten into by the stock market crashing.
Back in the 90s.
Now, I'm talking now.
Sounds like you had a mindset change after the previous economic crash that helped you buffer against this one somewhat.
Yes.
I want to go back to the similarities and differences between the last economic crash and this one. Because you said you completely lost your job back then.
I lost my business.
Your store went under.
Yeah.
And you came out of that relatively okay, right?
Well, yes and no. We had some very difficult years, and I realized the most important thing to me was not what I wanted to do, but job security.
I see.
So that's, sort of, you have to change your view of yourself and your life and be very realistic, I think, when the times are difficult. And I think for my sons, it makes them more nervous about doing something like changing where they're living or changing a job, because you have to hang on to what you want what you've got when the times are tight, and count yourself lucky to have anything.
Well, I'm sure you've heard of all the retirement accounts that have just been disappeared.
Yeah, it hasn't disappeared, but your account, you
right.
think you have so much and count on the income from that,
right,
and then all
right,
of a sudden your account shrinks.
Right, and here on top of that, you have a son that you want to support.
Right.
And, at what cost does that take?
You have this sort of the Lord of the Manor attitude, where somebody with a lot of money gets to play God and decides who will be benefited, and the people at the bottom are supposed to be grateful for crumbs when there isn't a decent standard of living for everybody. And there could be. There's certainly enough wealth and resources in this country to give everyone a decent standard of living. The economic structure is like a pyramid, and there's only room for so many at the top, and now we've seen the little top of the pyramid get tighter and further detached from the bottom. It's admirable for someone like Bill Gates to do charitable work, but I would find it more admirable for people who were in the top section of the economy to forego their huge salary differential, have a more modest relationship to other people's salaries, and give good benefits to their workers, share the wealth, and also make their products cheaper. I personally would never mind paying higher taxes for good social benefits for people in the United States.
Perhaps the most striking statement made by Sandy was the change in mindset, how she went from small business owner to library employee in search of security after the economic crash of the 1990s. And though she sets a good example of how to buffer ourselves against the current economy, her wisdom just doesn't express the anxiety that is so prevalent in my generation. I next talked to Zoe Baker, a junior here at UMass, to see how the economic crisis affects her.
For what's going on right now, I never thought that I would think about whether or not I would be able to continue going to school. My dad lost his job in the second semester of my freshman year. He was laid off, and during a lot of downsizing in his company.
You said that you were not so sure about your future as a student, able to afford college.
Yeah.
Now, what does your mom do?
My mom has health problems, and she's not able to hold a steady job in a kind of a normal workplace. Like, she can't work a 9-to-5 job. My dad's former job was very well paying, and I was not worried about going to college at all. Although I did have a loan, my parents could get loans, when my dad was laid off, excuse me, we suddenly found ourselves in this place where if I hadn't gotten more financial aid, there's no way that we would have been able to get another loan because nobody will give a loan to an unemployed person, which
And
makes sense, but...
That's very interesting that not only was your family not making any income, but they couldn't even take out a loan.
Right. I was really, really scared that I was going to have to leave school. I write, and obviously writing, especially I write poetry, which is not particularly lucrative. And so there's this idea that I can't really do what makes me the happiest. I feel pressure to find a different career. Nobody who writes poetry is going to make a lot of money, and Mary Oliver, who's a famous poet, has written essays about how she thought of poetry as her first job and it got her first effort, and she would get up very early in the morning and write and put all her effort into that, and then go to work and put her second best effort into that. And that sounds really, really exhausting to me, especially since that's 2 jobs. Right. But also she had a partner, but she didn't have like children, family kind of thing, and I really don't know what I want to have, but I definitely have thought about having children. I can't imagine, juggling kids and writing and a job in any kind of way that would make me a relaxed person ever.
American Identity was originally based on this idea of manifest destiny, that you do what you want and, you work hard and it'll work out. The American dream. And here you are saying that you have to compromise your dream in order to fit in with America.
I mean, I've never thought that the American dream was a reality.
Well, it's actually very interesting that, you're bringing this mindset that things seem so bad here that you actually want to leave the country.
I mean, it's I guess it's more that I see America as being kind of ideologically in crisis right now.
I'm sure many, many people our age agree with you. That's just the sort of culture we've grown up in. And I'm sure if you ask even your parents and people in the generation before us, leaving America to succeed somewhere else must have sounded ridiculous when they were our age. Even as far as the 90s go, America was amazing in terms of world economy. And now, as you said, it's not only the economic crisis, but it's an ideological crisis.
I mean, I think that with, since the 70s, the percentage of wealth that's in the hands of, the top 1 to 10% is very, very high, and I guess I don't have a dream of being so ridiculously wealthy that I would need to live here to achieve it. It's more about, I don't want to be scared, and I'd like to make enough money that I don't need to be scared, but I don't feel like I need to make more than that.
Do you have hope? Do you have optimism for yourself or for the American economy?
I definitely have hope. I don't have that much optimism, but I do have, I guess, a certain amount of faith in humanity.